Okay, welcome all. Let's get started. Welcome to this webinar on what's new in the latest version, Origin 2021B. My name is Ishwar Iyer. I am product manager at OriginLab. During the webinar, please feel free to ask questions. You will need to type them in the Q&A window on WebEx or in the chat window. If you type in the chat window, please direct the questions towards panelists, not to the host or presenter. If you point to the host or presenter, I may not see it in time. So preferably use the Q&A window. A couple of my colleagues from tech support have joined as well, and they are panelists. This webinar is being recorded. Early next week, we'll share a link to the recording as well as this project and any associated data files so that you can review the recording and play with the data and the project at that point in time. So before we get started with the latest version, I just wanted to quickly show our website. And I wanted to point out that if you go to support and help center, that's our main page for all technical resources available to you. One of them is Origin software release history. So if I click on that, you'll see that in recent years, we have been releasing 2 versions of Origin every year, one in late April and one in late October. So 2021B is the most recent release, which was released end of April. If you go to the home page, originlab.com, you will see that the new version is prominently displayed here. There is also a link upgrade to 2021. You can either click on the logo or on the upgrade button. It will take you to a highlights page, which then outlines all of the key features, okay, in this version. Okay, there are screenshots, there are details, there are links to blogs, there are links to release notes when applicable for more details and such. So all the key features, new graph types, new apps, everything is listed here, plus a whole host of other minor features. On this page, I wanted to point out that if you hover on the new features highlight link up here in this URL path, you will see we have been maintaining these highlights pages for many past versions, 2015, 16, 17, 18, and so forth. So if you're running an older version and you're curious to see what changed, what were the key features in recent versions, you can click and open any one of these and review what was added, okay? Back to Origin. Feel free to type in questions again, okay? We would love to hear from you as we proceed with the webinar. So for today, it's an overview of the key features. So I have a topic list here, and I have created a project with subfolders for all of these topics. They are in this roughly in the same order as that web page I showed you. Okay. So let's get started. The first feature I want to go over is inserting maps into graphs using shapefiles. I know this is somewhat specific and it may not apply to you if you don't work with maps, but let me just introduce this concept to you, and it's also tied to a significant improvement we have made to NetCDF and climate related data in this version. Okay, we'll come back to that a bit later. So here I have a metrics window in Origin. As you know, Origin has a couple of data containers. One is a workbook similar to Excel. The other is a metrics book. The metrics book, you can import different types of 2-dimensional data, including images, NetCDF, stack of images and such. So here I have a world air temperature data, and I have created a graph here from that particular workbook. So with such graph active, now if you go to the insert menu, you'll see a section here to insert images from files Also, a couple of entries are already available here. One is world map and another is map of China. So if I click on world map, it'll use an internal shape file that we ship with the product. We ship a couple of shape files. If you're interested in more shape files to be added to this collection, let us know at the end of the webinar during the poll so we can keep expanding the available collection. So here it inserted the outline of all countries on the world map. Okay. What if I have a specific country and I do not see it in the menu? As you know, shape files are commonly available. So for example, I have a graph here with South America highlighted, and I have a shape file for Brazil that we found on the web. I'm going to drag and drop that file onto Origin. So one of the features we implemented in this new version is that you can easily drag and drop a shape file and Origin will import it. It's essentially latitude, longitude data. So I can simply click the Y column, select it and drag it over and drop, and there you see the outline of Brazil. Okay. Questions, comments on this, please feel free to type into the Q&A window. Okay. If you are interested in more map and shapefile related features, we would love to hear from you. Moving on to the next feature, it's about the embedded Python in Origin. As you may already know, several versions ago, we introduced the idea, the feature of installing Python along with Origin. So you don't even need to go out, look for an installation of Python or look for an editor and such. Python is automatically installed with Origin. And even if you have an external Python installed, the embedded Python that we installed will not interfere with it. It's separate. Okay. So we made significant improvements to the embedded Python in version 2020, which was last October. And we continue to make more improvements. So in version 2021B, we have several improvements some key improvements I'm going to show you. Before that, I wanted to show you this web page of the Python documentation. So if you're new to using Python in Origin, you could go to our website and follow that link that I showed you. Is essentially in our documentation area. We have documentation on all areas: user guide, tutorials, quick help, Origin help, laptop programming, and here it is. Here is Python and Python external. So if I click on Python external, that's for accessing Origin from outside Python that you may have installed. But the main focus here is about the internal, or what we call the embedded Python. So if you go here, you'll see there's quite a few pages about description of embedded Python, how to install and manage packages, okay, and using Python in tools and dialogs within Origin, okay. And recently we revamped the Python sample code, so that's available as well. So you can go and see what can you do with graphing, or what can you do with worksheets. You can look at sample codes. On our forum, okay, which is available from the right side, what I clicked here is one of the icons to open the forum. So on our forum as well, we have a special forum for Python. So if you have questions, you can post them there as well. Okay. We would love to hear from you if you're starting to use Python and you need help. And we can always provide more examples of Python code and such. So let me go through a few key examples or key features that we improved in this latest version. One of them is that we have improved IntelliSense, and we have introduced that into the Python console. So here I have a worksheet with some data, and I want to execute a few lines of Python code to do a summary of the data. So rather than create a Py file, I can go to the connectivity menu and simply open the Python console. Okay. So here I can start typing my Python commands. I have them as a quick reference in this notepad here for me to remember. So the first command I'm going to issue here is import Origin Pro as OP. Origin Pro is the package that we provide with Origin, which allows you to communicate between Python and Origin, such as put data into a worksheet, get data out of a worksheet, and such. So first you need to initiate that. Now I want to point to this worksheet so that I can get the data. So I can define a variable worksheet equals. So now watch what happens. If I do op dot, it's going to give me all the methods available here. So that's where the IntelliSense comes in. So what I want to use in this particular case is find sheet. If I click find sheet, then it will show me the syntax. Okay, I double click, it will enter the command there. So I continue with the parentheses. I can go up here and look for examples. So for example, if it's an active sheet, I do not need to pass any parameter. So I can simply say close parentheses and hit enter. And now we already have a reference to this active book, active sheet. Now let's get that data into a data frame. So then I can say op dot WKS. Sorry, I don't need op dot. df equal to WKS dot to df. Okay. So you can again make use of IntelliSense. In this case, I know what command I'm typing. So I'm grabbing the data from the worksheet into a data frame. Once I do that, then I can use the pandas describe method, okay, to describe my data to get a quick summary. Okay, so there you go. There is a summary. It gives you all the mean and standard deviation and such. Now, a few other commands. I can create a new data frame from this existing data frame by sampling randomly 10 samples. Okay, just to show you the flexibility of running quick commands from the console and using IntelliSense. So now I can create a new worksheet, WKS2 equal to op dot new underscore sheet. Okay. Okay, and then I can say in this new sheet, WKS2 dot get the data from DF. Okay, and my DF name is DF1. So I'm grabbing that sample that we just created and I put that into the second worksheet. Okay, so just to show you the flexibility of using console along with IntelliSense. Of course, you can, for running and managing code with many lines of code, you can always go to our code builder, which already has built-in capability for Python syntax, highlighting, and IntelliSense there as well. So that's not new. That existed in the previous version as well. Okay. Questions, comments, please feel free to use the Q&A window. Another nice feature in this latest version, you may know that you can create a button on graphs and worksheets and put some code behind it to perform certain tasks. So if I hold the Alt key and double click on this button, it will open the properties dialog. And one of the panels in the properties dialog is a programming panel. In previous versions, this programming could be done only with LabTalk. Okay, but in this version, we are supporting Python as well. So here I have Python code. Once you start, obviously you cannot mix the original LabTalk script and Python inside this panel. It has to be one or the other. So in this case, I have Python code, which is using NumPy and SciPy to perform an FFT of a signal that doesn't have uniform spacing in X. So it's a Lom's-Cargill periodogram. Okay. So if I click OK, it's going to run that code and it gives me the result. So this gives you flexibility of creating templates for custom analyses where you can tap into the functionality available with Python packages. Once you install a Python package, it stays there with your origin, and then you can call upon it from the script, from the Python code from anywhere, such as console, button, code builder, etc. There are many different ways to execute Python code. Okay. Another improvement is that we have improved the fitting function builder in Origin to accommodate Python code. So first, before I go there, let me show you, we have, as you know, we publish apps for Origin. These are free, available for download. There is an apps tab on the right side. I have quite a few apps installed here. I just wanted to show you one of them, which is a fitting function library. Okay, what this particular app does is it hosts a set of fitting functions that we have put up on our server. Customers have asked, rather than putting everything into the product, we maintain them on the cloud in a library, and you can come here and click on any particular one and download it to add that function to your collection. One of those functions is a mass diffusion equation, typically used for thin films, which has a summation in the fitting, and that's easily done with Python rather than having to struggle with Origin C. So this function I have already installed. You can see there's a green dot here. Any function I want, I can select that row and click this button to add to my Origin. I have already added here. Just wanted to show you this library and where to get this function. So now going back here, let me go to the Tools menu and bring up Fitting Function Builder. And Fitting Function Builder is the tool that you would use to create a new function or edit an existing user-defined function. So in this case, I have the user-defined function. I just want to edit it. So I'm going to choose the mass diffusion function that I had downloaded and click Next. Now you see under function type, we have two new entries, Python function scalar, Python function vector. In this case, it happens to be the vector form of the function that I need. So now if I click Next, you will see here in this code page that it is indeed Python code. Okay, it's using mpmath and numpy to perform the summation. Okay, so let me cancel out of this dialog. I just wanted to show you that the fitting function builder easily supports directly editing code. So just to complete this demo, let me fit with that function. So I'll go to the analysis menu, fitting, nonlinear curve fit, open dialog. Okay, and I have that function in my user-defined category. Let me go choose that function. Okay, so the function loads. Okay, and then if I go to the parameters tab, this particular function does not have any parameter initialization code, so it assigned 1 to everything. In my particular data case of my data, I know that the thin film thickness is 0.5, so I'm fixing it. I'm letting the other parameters, the diffusion coefficient and the y0 to vary. Then I can click fit to perform the fitting. Okay, so then Origin's iterative algorithm will use the Python code to perform the fitting. Okay, now the fitting is done. I get a good convergence, so I can click OK to generate the report. Okay, and then when the report is generated, a message may pop up asking you, do you want to go look at it? So it's like any built-in function, you'll get a detailed report. We have many webinars on curve fitting that you may be interested in reviewing. Okay, so the focus here is to tell you that Python can be used as the code in fitting functions. And anytime you run into issue with the fitting function, feel free to contact tech support. We would be happy to create the function for you and put it up in that fitting function library so other users can benefit from it as well. Questions, comments? I don't see anything in the chat or Q&A window. Feel free to type questions there. Moving on to the next topic, it's about mini toolbars. You may know, if you have been using recent versions of Origin, that rather than having to go to all these toolbars that are docked around the interface, in recent versions, we have added the concept of mini toolbars. So here in a 2D graph, if I go click on a data point, a mini toolbar will pop up. I can quickly do changes such as change my image, my symbol color, or change my symbol type. If I click at the layer level, another toolbar pops up. There are buttons here such as adding a layer frame. If I go click at the edge, a page level toolbar pops up. And over here, there are a bunch of buttons related to page level operations. So here I may want to go and say, trim the white space with a border of 2, please. So it will reduce the white space. Okay, this is not new. Also with worksheets, if you click on a particular column, you'll get a mini toolbar to set things like designations and turn on sparkline and such. If you click outside, you'll get a page level mini toolbar. What's new in this version is that we have extended it to 3D graphs. That was missing in previous version. So now on a 3D plot, I can click and easily change my palette. For example, say I want to choose a thermometer palette. Then I can also do things such as increase, decrease, major levels. Okay, I can click at the layer level to turn on rotation. Okay, I can click at the layer level to turn on grid lines and such, whether I want a cube around my plot. So many different options. Also the page level, there are some mini toolbars related to 3D. Okay, so check that out if you are working with 3D plots. Okay. Okay. Next, climate data and NetCDF. I'm going to show you a quick example of this. There will be another webinar next Friday in much more detail on this. My colleague Chris Drozdowski, who is the resident expert on NetCDF and climate data, will be hosting that. We also have a blog. Okay, so if you are into climate data analysis in NetCDF, you may want to check out the blogs. Okay, but let me quickly show you in Origin an example of working with NetCDF data. Okay, so I'm going to go to click on the worksheet here and go to the data menu. And as you know, in recent versions, we introduced the idea of data connectors, similar to Excel and Tableau and other products. So we have data connectors for various file types, text, CSV, Excel, even Origin files, MATLAB, and such, and also public domains such as HDF and NetCDF. So let me choose NetCDF, and I'm going to choose this air temperature data. Okay, it's a 34 megabyte file. Okay, I'm going to click open. So Origin then opens the dialog, the browser dialog, which tells me what are all the details here. If I click at various node levels, it will give me all the metadata here. This is terrestrial air temperature data. It's from climate website, climate.geology.University of Delaware. Some references that they used, latitude, longitude data. And typically with such climate data, there is a variable here, dimensionality of 3, which is latitude versus longitude versus time. So this is air temperature measured over a period of time. So that's the variable I want to bring in. So if I double click, it will say, hey, you had a workbook active. You would rather bring this into a metrics book, which is recommended. So I'm going to say, okay, I accept that. So the variable gets added here. Now, what's new in this version is you can click this pencil button here to make several changes, such as slicing the data from which times point to which end point do you want the data to come in. Do you want to average the data as it comes in? Do you want longitudinal shift? Do you want to restrict to subregion? Do you want to do data transform as the data is being imported? In my case, I want to do some skipping. I don't want every month to come in. I want to import 1 month and skip 6 months and go to the next after 6 months and such. So I made a change here, click OK. That puts in a certain syntax into the dialog. I click OK. Now it will go ahead and import that data. Okay. So now you will see I have the metrics book in Origin, but because I imported a stack, there is also a slider. So I can move the slider around. So the first data here is 2000 January 1. Next one is July, and next one is January 2001. Remember, we did the 6 month skipping. So now with this active, I can click at the edge here and do things such as change my fill color. I can put in a different fill color. Okay, and in the origin toolbar, there is a toolbar for color, so I can go there and put on my temperature palette. Okay, so now I have a nice temperature palette to show variation in temperature across time worldwide. So now I'm going to extend this to show a couple more neat features and then end with that, and then you can refer to the other webinar for more details next week. One of them is region of interest. So I can draw a region of interest here. I'm drawing one somewhere in Africa. Double click and I'm going to name it Africa. Okay. And then I'm going to add another region of interest here in South America. Okay, I'm going to double click and name that South America. Okay, and then I want them to align them. I want them to have essentially the same dimensions and such. So I'm going to right click here and say copy positions. Then I can go here and I can click and say paste position to width to make it the same width. I can right click and say paste positions to height to make it the same height. Then I can right click again and say paste position to the vertical alignment. So now it's aligning vertically. Okay. I can nudge it a little bit to come into the land space. Okay. Just a simple demo. Next week's webinar, you will see a lot more. So now that I have two ROIs defined, I can double click. Sorry. I can right click on one of the ROIs and I can say, give me a profile, give me an intensity profile across time. So now I can open the dialog and I say, I want the intensity profile for all of the ROIs on my metrics. I want mean and standard deviation. So if I do that, I'll get a new worksheet, which now extracted for Africa and South America, the mean temperatures and the standard deviation. So I can then select this, go to my plot menu and make a line plot. Okay. So there you go. I get my variation in temperature as a function of years here, the months here. Okay. And furthermore, I can do other cosmetic changes such as click on the error bar and make that into a shaded area and such. Okay. Can click here on the legend. Now you can see there is the benefit of mini toolbar. Anywhere you click, mini toolbar pops up. I can quickly change it to my ROI so that now I have proper reference that red line is South America and black is Africa. I would have thought that Africa temperature would be higher, but it's not. Okay. Questions, comments? I don't see anything in the Q&A or chat window. Feel free to type questions, comments there, please. Okay, somebody has a question. Can I fit my data to a customized function that I want to insert myself using embedded Python? Yes, as I said earlier, please contact us. We'll help you. Okay, moving on. Another nifty feature in this new version is that we have introduced support to SQLite database. Okay, as you know, I have put a reference here to SQLite. As you know, SQLite is a open source database which is very flexible to use. You do not need any help from your IT or any server. It's basically file based. All of the data is saved in files locally or on a network drive if you prefer to share. And it's a database that's used in many different platforms, including your mobile phones and such. So if you want to say archive lab data and use SQLite, or if you already have such data, you can import as well as export. So let me quickly give you a demo of both. Okay, I have a blank workbook here that I'm going to import some data into. Okay, so with the book active, I'm going to go to the data menu, and you can see in addition to all the data connectors for file types, we also have connect to database. We also have connect to web. If you want to connect to a web file, such as say files on USGS, NOAA, or COVID data, or whatever it is that available on the web that you want to pull in. Okay, so I go to database, I go to new. Okay, and there are several choices here. I'm going to choose ODBC driver because I have already pre-installed a driver for SQLite. So that's one thing you will need to do. We have a blog on this. You can refer to the blog, and the blog will guide you through how to how to install the driver and then use it from origin. Okay, so I choose ODBC driver and click OK. And then it's going to ask me which ODBC driver. So it's SQLite. And in this latest version, we pre-ship a file. Okay, we have a file here that we pre-ship called Chinook SQLite database. So I'm just going to choose that one. Okay, and click OK. And Origin will then open this SQL editor. This is not new. It has been around. You can use it with any of your databases such as Oracle or whatever. What's new is that it now supports SQLite via the driver. So now I can go look at different tables. Let's say I want to get the customer table. I can click OK, and the customer table comes in. Okay, and you can see here, one thing I failed to mention in previous versions is that in the previous demos, that when you import a file using data connector, there is a data connector icon that you can click and go and make changes. So for example, if I wanted to change my 6-month slice to a different slice here, I could have done that. Okay, so similar to how operations are all tied together in Origin, import is also tied to the file now. So in this case, there is a database icon. So I can click on it and reopen my SQL editor, and I can make changes here. I can say where country is one element of the table, country like Brazil. Okay, and then click OK. Then it will reduce the list to only customers from Brazil, for example. Just to show you that the query stays in the book, you can change the query anytime and re-import the data. Okay, that's as far as importing goes. Now let's look at export. I have a couple of books here that I created, and what I did here was I performed some batch analysis in Origin. That's a very strong feature in Origin. Without doing any programming, you can perform batch analysis. We have webinars on this. We have tutorials on this. You may want to look that up. So let's say I performed batch analysis on different days, and I want to archive this to a database and later be able to retrieve it. So let me take my summary one book, how to put this into a SQLite database. So then I go to the file menu, choose export. Under export, we used to have ASCII, Excel, etc., and National Instruments DADM and export as PDF, etc. Now we have added SQLite. So in this SQLite dialog, I can specify what file name to use. So I can give it a name, batch results, for example. And then there are several options here. Where do you want the file to go? I'll accept the default. It goes to user files folder, extension SQLite. I have some hidden columns here, so I can say skip the hidden column and hit OK. And that's it. It exported to a database file. Let's go look at it. So it went to the user files folder. If I go to the help menu, I can go to open folder and get to my user files folder just so I can get my path. Let me copy that path. And I have installed an SQL Studio, okay, which is also a free tool that you can download as part of installing your SQL driver and such. So here I'm going to add a database, the database that we just created. I'm going to navigate to the user files folder. There is my database, batch results.sql. Click OK. And if I double click here, there is my table, the table that I exported. Here are my results. Okay, I can go look at the data, all of the values that I exported. Okay, let's go back to Origin. Let's say another day you have another table which you want to archive. So I made table 2 active now. I can go to the same menu, SQLite, and then I can click on the file name here and choose a previously used file to keep adding to it. So here is my batch results that we just created. And again, I want to hide the columns. Click OK. So now if I pop back to the SQL Studio, I can click here, right click and say refresh the selected database. Okay. Where is it? Okay, there comes my result 2. So if I double click here, I can go to the data and look at my result 2. So just to show you, importing from SQLite and exporting to SQLite is very easy now. Questions, comments? Okay, I see somebody has a question about SQLite and my colleague Chris is helping. Okay, all right, good. So now let's move on to the next topic, worksheet calculations, okay? So in this latest version, let me go back to our web page. Let me go back to the home page and get to the 2021B feature highlights page. If you scroll down, we have gone through all of these topics so far. So enhancement to worksheet calculations, we introduced a bunch of functions to allow more flexibility for performing calculations at column level and such. If you are into setting column values using functions, Origin has over 300 to 500 functions. I lost count. So we introduced IDX, new function, report cell, another function, a new sum function for row-wise mean, standard deviation, etc. More statistics such as LCL, UCL, geometric mean, etc. Here is a link to release notes. If you click that, it will go to the release notes, which will give you details. Okay. Back to Origin. I just wanted to show a couple of them. So just wanted to show you the IDX function. So here I have a signal which has jumps. It jumps up, jumps down. So in column C, using set column values, let me just open it. As you know, you can take a column and add a set column value formula. You can even add script here, or in later versions, recent versions, you can even have Python functions here. We have several examples of this built into the product. You can use NumPy, SciPy, whatever packages to process data in your columns using this tab. In my case, I'm using this new built-in function with the condition that when column B difference is greater than 1, put the indices here. So that's what this IDS function does. So it found out that first transition was at index 24, next was at index 39 and such. And then I have added a couple more columns to find the X value at that index and the Y value at that index, and I have plotted them here. Okay. Another function here, report cell. So if I have a book here, say with many different fitting function reports, fit NL1, fit NL2, and what if I want to make my own summary? I can use this function, report cell, and point to the book and the sheet and the particular variable I want to grab, and I can put that in here. So all of these are created by setting column values using this report cell function. These are somewhat advanced. If you are familiar with scripting and also familiar with using set column values, you may want to check out these new functions. Okay. Any questions, comments so far? Let's see. Okay. Moving on, let's take a look at the next feature, which is data slicer for graphs. So in Origin, we have filtering capabilities similar to Excel. You can add filters to a column. So here I have a worksheet in a different view mode. Maybe you don't know this. If you go to the view menu, you have a column list view, Control W. This is a normal view. Okay, if I have many columns and I don't want to necessarily see the numbers, I have a compact view called column list view. So I have put the worksheet in column list view. Now each row is a column. There's a year column, make column, power column. If I hover on the extreme left, it will show me the first few entries of that data set if I want to take a look. So I have created a graph here from that data. A few variables, gas mileage versus engine displacement, 0 to 60 versus engine displacement. So if I now go to the book and turn on some filters, so if I click and select a particular column, in this case, I'm selecting the make column, I can go up to the toolbar here and click add remove data filter. Okay, this is not new. It existed in previous versions. So I can click here and give it, you can see that it lists all of the unique entries here. I can do a similar thing with a year, for example. I can click here and I can turn on a filter, and then I can reduce my data by saying, okay, show me all the data for year greater than 2000. Okay, and that is, as you see, the data reduces and the graph updates. What's new in this version is that once you have a filter set up and a graph, you don't need to keep going back to the worksheet. I can click on the graph at the outskirts, and there is a mini toolbar button that appears if there are filters on the data plotted in the graph. So if I click that, the filters are available right here in a data slicer panel. So I can go here and click and select, unselect what I want. Let's say I want to look at only Honda. I can click and do this, and I get only Honda. Okay. And if I actually change a categorical variable to only one, then I can quickly get a drop-down list right there. So I can see only Mazda, for example. I can go here and say I have a year filter. I want to make it less than, okay, and click OK. Then it will apply that condition. I can right click here and I can say disable this filter. Then it will keep that filter but disable it momentarily. So there are many features here you may want to check out. Okay, more details are available on the website and in release notes. So if you are working with filters and want to work directly from graphs, this is a nice feature. Okay, let me see if there are questions. All right, keep the questions coming, please. Okay, so the next one is improvements to browser graph. Okay, so if you have used recent versions of Origin, you may already know this. We have a new way of exploring multi-channel and multi-channel data using a plot type called browser plot. So let me show that. So here I have a book with many sheets. It's some peak measurement at different temperatures, 275, 285, and such. So let me select one of the sheets and the column B, and I'm going to make a plot here. And when I go to the plot menu, you will see that we have all these categories you may already be familiar with. In recent versions, we introduced this browser category. Okay, there are a few options here. We can have a stack plot, you can have a histogram plot, color lines, black lines. I'm going to choose black lines. Okay, so it plotted the data from the first sheet and it gave me a navigation panel here. The navigation panel also has a menu. From the menu, I can say add all similar columns from the same book, from all the other sheets. Okay, so it added all of them. The name happens to be amplitude on all of them. No worries, I can right click here and say show me the sheet name. So now I have the distinct name. I can even go ahead and turn off the long name. I don't need it anymore. So now I can flip through, okay, and look at my variation in the peak data as the temperature increases. Okay, this is not new. What's new in the latest version is that there is a flip through dialog in which we have added a slider. So I can use the slider to move around. Okay, I should have improved the legend. The legend here, let me see. The legend here is just saying amplitude. So let me click on the legend, drag it over here. And when I click on it, the mini toolbar pops up. I can say use the sheet name. So I have the temperature there. So then I can use the flip through again. So imagine you have hundreds of channels of data. You can easily navigate and see the variation in your data. And the navigation panel as well as the legend clearly shows you which data you're looking at. Okay. What's new in this version is that we also expanded this to images. So here I have a book that's linked to a MATLAB file with some images in it. The data was cleared when the project was saved. That's one of the features of Data Connector, that you can keep the project small by not storing the data with the project. So then the Data Connector icon will be yellow. I can click on it to say, go ahead, import. It'll find the file and bring the data back in. Okay, so I can have a stack. I have a stack of images here. Okay. By the way, if you have a stack of images in the metrics book, in this version, we also introduced a feature to export it as a video. So you can export it either as an AVI, a TIFF, or let me see, a GIF file. So check that out. You could create movies from a stack of images. Okay. You can also directly, as I showed with the NetCDF data, NetCDF was using the metrics book as well. In this case, it just happens to be some imaging data. So I can go ahead and put in whatever palette that I want, okay, to enhance my image, okay. Now, what's new in this version is that if I make a plot from this metrics book, such as say an image plot, okay, that image plot is plotting only one of the images in the stack. Not to worry, I can click on the page level mini toolbar and turn on the browser graph. Now it picks up all of the images, okay? It's showing me the short name by default. I can right click and say, show me the long name. I can turn off the short name, okay? And now I have them all. Notice that it's not in perfect order, so I can click and sort it, okay? Now I can go to that flip through dialog, which is now also available for images. So I can flip through and see how my image is changing. Okay. And this also applies to more complex plots, such as under contour. Under contour, we have several plot options, one of them being image profile. Image profile is a very versatile tool where you can take an image and perform vertical and horizontal profiling. Okay. And here too, I can turn on the browser graph. We have videos on this, tutorials on this, how to work with image profiles. So you may want to check that out. Here, what I mainly wanted to show you was as I flip through, the image is changing and so is the profile. So you can study the profile, both vertical and horizontal, of an image stack using this flexible slider. Okay. Quite a few features in this version, huh? Okay, moving on, new graph types. Okay, so the best way to see what are new graph types introduced in this particular version is to use the F11 dialog, or from the help menu, it's called the Learning Center, shortcut key F11. So if you're not familiar with this dialog, it's a good dialog to go visit. So there are three tabs here. There is a graph samples tab, there is an analysis samples tab, okay, and there is a learning resources tab, which has some beginner tutorials, link to all the tutorials, link to our blog. Remember, I was talking about the blog. So if you go to the blog, you will see all these recent blogs: SQLite, detecting jumps in signal, network plot, adding maps to graphs, Python-based connector for chunking files, okay, new blogs on NetCDF improvements, okay. There is a blog here about using graph templates from Python, many different blogs, okay. Check out our blog site if you haven't been there. So under graph samples, you can explore all the plot types that are available in Origin by category. But if you're looking for what's new in the recent versions, you can go in, put the version number, such as 2020, 2021, etc. So let me put 2021B, and you will see all of the graphs that we introduced in 2021B pops up. Okay, then you can go take a look to see which one you would like to explore. So for example, let's look at this network plot. So I choose that and click OK, and Origin will take that particular sample, which is shipped with the product, and it will append it to your current project. So then you can go here. It's a correlation network plot of companies in the Forbes 500 list. So some criterion was used to cluster the companies together. So here's a notes window that gives you details on how this graph was made. So if you're interested in network plots, you may want to check out the network plot samples. Okay, I'm not going to spend time working on a network plot, how to create it. We may do that in a separate webinar. If you are interested in a webinar focused on just the new graph types, please tell us in the poll at the end of this seminar. Okay, a few other graph types. Here is one that may be of interest to hydrologists, chemists. So this one out here, you can load that and take a look. It's called a Drouot plot. So it's plotting some environmental data in this special plot with all these triangle shaped layers to represent various quantities that were being measured in all these sites. Okay. All right. For a nicer view of the new graphs, you can also go to our website, not the blog site, sorry. You can go to, let's see what happened to my browser. You can go to the highlights page for 2021B, and we have some nicer screenshots here for all of the new graph types. You can click and pop up and see there are a couple of variations of network plot. Here is another plot which we improved, marginal histogram. Now you can take categorical data, use that to separately create profiles. So here it's overlay distributions. This is using kernel distribution for 3 different data sets in the same graph. Okay, you could also do these as box plots, violin plots, and such. Okay, here is a stiff diagram. Again, if you are into hydrology, environment, etc., this may be of interest to you. This is a stiff diagram overlaid on a Google map. Inserting Google Maps as a background to the layer is not a new feature. We have had that app for quite a few years now. Here is another stiff diagram. Here's the Drouot plot that I showed you. Here's the ribbon chart. That's more of an eye candy. Excel does this, so we created the ribbon plot as well in this version. Okay, so check out the new plot types. In addition to the new graph types, we also made some improvements to how to handle templates. Okay, so let me go through that for the next topic. Okay, so let's go to graph tab here. So I have some data here. I want to create a plot. I go to the plot menu, I look through, and I don't quite see the plot that I want. So what we have done is we have enhanced this feature, which is called template library. It existed in previous versions, but watch what happens when I click this now. It opens a new dialog. This dialog can handle both user templates and extended templates. User templates are graphs that you create and customize and save as a template for future use. So I can, for example, turn off extended templates and show only user templates. I happen to have a couple of user templates that I created on this PC. But the extended templates are templates that we now ship with Origin, which are not in the menu, but they're available to you to use. Okay, so rather than cluttering the menu, we put them here. So the template of interest to me is rain cloud plot. So let me choose that and click plot. Then a dialog pops up asking me to select the variables because I did not select any of the columns. So I want to select all of them and add and click OK. So now I get a rain cloud plot, which was not in the plot menu, but it's in the extended templates. Let's open that extended templates again to show you a couple of things. You can view them in list view, okay, where if you hover on the icon here, it will show you a nice pop-up and details. It will also tell you what kind of data is needed for that plot. You can also decide, do I want to show this in the menu? So for example, I want that, I want the shoulder diagram, and I want the log plot, I want the mean line on graph. Okay, turn on and close. Then if I go to the plot menu and go to my templates, it will show them there. So quick way to access from my templates. Remember what I showed you was template library. This is my templates, which will show you the user templates that you created plus the extended templates that you said should show up here. Okay, so that's convenient to work with. Rather than cluttering all of these categories, we decided to offer them as extended templates, and in future versions we may put up more and more of these on cloud so you can download as you need them. A similar concept with worksheets. So let me go to the file menu, click new workbook. I want to create a new workbook, and here I have a construct menu. That's not new, that's for constructing patterns such as X, Y, Y, X, Y, X, Y, etc. But this is new, browse. So that opens a template library again, but this time for workbooks. So here again, I can choose user versus extended. I happen to have some user templates again, and the extended templates are shipped with Origin. You can hover to see what they're all about. There are pictures here. So for example, there's one for ridge regression. There is one for regression clustering. So then you can select that. You can also decide to show that in the menu, and you can click open, and then the regression clustering template will open. Okay, so this is actually an example using Python. So then I'm not going to spend time working on this. You can separately explore it. But when you add to the menu, then it'll be available right here. So you can quickly access from the menu as well. So mainly wanted to show you that there is a new dialog to manage workbook templates as well. Okay. Last but not the least, we have several apps in this version. So let me show you that from the web page again. Go to the highlights page, and if I scroll down here, here is a list of all the new apps. We have one for exporting multiple worksheets to ASCII files that was asked for by many customers. One for fixing column bars across multiple layers to be the same width, even if the layers are not the same width. Rectangle and ellipse profile, polar contour profile, polar heat map. Heat maps have been quite popular in recent versions. So this is a polar version of heat map along with the dendrogram. Empirical mode decomposition for signal analysis. MANOVA, as you know, we have several statistics apps, and we keep adding more and more. In the recent version, we added MANOVA, and we also added ANOVA from summarized data that was asked for by a couple of users. We have an optimal cluster number app to decide cluster number for principal component analysis. There is a Probit analysis app. There's a 1D statistical parametric mapping. And this one is interesting. There is a popular constants app. It lets you you work with constants in Origin. So let me quickly show that. If I go to my Origin, I have already installed it. So by the way, if you click the apps tab at the very top, you will see add apps, which opens our app center. Here you can see what's new and popular. So here are all the new ones. The check mark means I've already installed them in my Origin. There is also a search tab. You can go here and search with keywords. Okay. So for example, I can type stats or fitting, etc., to see what are all the stats apps. As you can see, there are many apps here related to statistics that we have added over the past years. Okay. I just wanted to show you that. So let me open that popular constant. It's sorted alphabetically here. Where did it go? Sorry, maybe it's not sorted alphabetic. So let me right click here and let's see. Tab view. Sorry, right click here and where did it go? Sort tabs alphabetical. Yes, I have it alphabetical. So here it is, popular constants. Another way to find an app, if you don't know, Origin has a start menu. And in this version, that's another feature I forgot to mention. The start menu is something people don't quite notice. It's at the bottom left corner. In the help menu on top, we added a link to it. So if I click on the help menu, there is an activate start menu, just to make people aware of the start menu. Here you can go open recent files that you've been working with, recent apps that you have used. You can click on the settings button to customize the searching. You can even search for menus and apps. So for example, rather than struggling to figure out where is the app in my app tab, if I have many apps installed, I can go here and type a constant. So immediately popular constants pops up. I can click that, open. What we did here is we have shipped the app with a large selection of constants in physical sciences and engineering, and you can decide which one you want to include in Origin. For example, I've included golden ratio with the name golden, alpha, and constant for speed of light, etc. Then the nice thing is in your script calculations and set column values, you can use this name and that value will be used. Okay. All right. The last thing I want to leave you with is upcoming webinars. So let me go to our web page. If you go to the support menu here, you will see there is a webinar icon. If I click on the webinar icon, you will see there is registration for upcoming webinars. So here is today's webinar. Next one, as I mentioned, is climate data. But you can click register and it will take you to this page where for each webinar you need to register separately. Okay, so there is climate data coming up next Thursday. After that, there is introduction to using Python and Origin, which will be a more comprehensive overview of Python features. There is one on all of the ANOVA tools, including the new MANOVA. So if you are somebody who is interested in statistics, you may want to check that out. The poll will pop up now. So you can put in the poll comments about what other webinars would you like to see. We would love to continue providing these free webinars for you. So please take a few minutes to fill the poll and give us feedback. Thanks again for attending today, and please tell your colleagues about these webinars as well. They are free. We provide the project and the recording a few days after the webinar, so it's really easy for you to go back and review and play with the data and relearn things yourself. Thank you for attending today, and please take a few moments to give us your feedback.